They are CEOs, COOs, and CFOs, women ditching their traditional 9-to-5s to venture out to start their own businesses. The fact is, Black women now account for the fastest growing number of entrepreneurs. Tonight, we take a look at women who are tapping into the deep wells of business acumen and thriving along the way. Good evening. Welcome to our monthly special edition of The Daily Drum, a collaboration between 96.3 WHUR, HUR Voices, and WHUT-TV. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, in honor of Women's History Month, we present Boss Ladies, Black women entrepreneurs charting their own paths. And tonight, you're going to hear from women who are redefining what it means to be large and in charge. As always, we have a great panel of experts to lead us through this topic. My guests are Ty Heath, Global Lead for the B2B Institute at LinkedIn and co-founder of Transform Her. April Williams is the CEO and owner of the Kennedy Consulting Group. And Nicole Parker is principal and CEO of the Ellison Group. Ladies, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank
so,
you.
As I said at the beginning of the program, women are the fastest growing segment of the small business community. Ty, does that surprise you?
Not at all. Not at all. It just shows the resilience, the determination, and it's what I see within the community of Transform Her folks, whether we're in corporate, whether we are entrepreneurs, or even in the space of venture capital. I see women on the move. You're right when you say Black women are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. It's just amazing to see the number of businesses growing and even the investment happening during the pandemic. It's really amazing to see, not surprising at all.
What about you, April? In your experience, what have you seen when it comes to Black women entering this space and over the past several years?
Well, I definitely agree with Ty. However, I would take us back to about 2008. After the major downturn, many of the Black women-owned businesses, or many of Black women in corporate America and other branches, begin to lose their jobs. And so this was their only source, so their only opportunity. So it really is not anything new. It's just that in the wake of George Floyd, we're beginning to hear more about Black-owned businesses. And after the Me Too movement, we're hearing about Black women businesses. But from 2014 to 2019, it had its fastest growth, and 50% of the women-owned businesses that were started are by Black women. So yes, we're just now actually starting to hear about it, but it's been pretty accelerated for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. So Nicole, you know the saying that business is the economic engine that powers America, specifically small business. In your opinion, what parts do women bring to that economic engine?
For women, I think, and for Black women, we have to walk 3 times as fast, right? The African-American male walks 2 times as fast as a Black woman. It's about being the CEO of your own happiness, right? And for me, being denied promotion passovers, being a VP at a company, being a director, I simply just got tired of not getting access to the seat at the table. And so we are demanding our access and that seat at the table. It's about strategy. It's about not stressing in the stretch. And it's about replacing that fear with faith and not being scared to take that chance.
Tell me a little bit more about that, Nicole, because you were saying at one point it sounds to me as if you got sick and tired of being sick and tired. What was that like?
So for me, I work in the construction industry, and again, walking 3 times as fast, and in a male-dominated industry where I had 2 owners that I worked for that were male. I was carrying 70% of the revenue at the time, and just scared to take that chance, to take that leap of faith and move. And one day I got tired after the promotion Passover, and I went home and sat at the table and talked to my father, and he was reading the newspaper, and he says, "What are you crying for?" What are you going to do? You know what you're going to do. You're going to quit. And I looked at him and said, quit. He says, yes, you've been doing it on your own. You just need to step out on faith. And that next day, I made a decision to quit and turned in 2 documents to the 2 owners and said, here is my termination letter. And by the way, here's my consulting letter if you want me to continue on with those contracts. But the biggest thing for me in that was integrity. And, you know, in that contract, I said, I'll continue and finish the workload that I was doing. And in continuing that, I would not take any work from that company. But if it was ever recompeted, it would be fair game. And that's what I did. And I can remember.
How were you received?
Very shocking. It was very shocking. And I can remember one of the owners saying to me after the meeting, well, Nicole, you know, the reason why we haven't given you an opportunity of ownership here is because we don't want you to be responsible for all the problems that we have. And I just simply turned and smiled and said, well, if I had ownership.
Well, that sounded like a pat on the head. There. We just don't want to trouble you. That's foolishness.
And I sort of came back and said, well, if I had ownership, you wouldn't have all the problems that you have.
Come on.
Yes, that sounds like a little business shade there.
Yes, very much so.
You were kind of nodding your head, Ty, your thoughts about that story that Nicole was just sharing.
Yeah, I mean, we've done work to try to understand how Black women are received in the corporate world, and also when making decisions to leave, and also how people are seeing the value alongside doing the corporate job. We've gotten some really interesting thoughts. So I was just laughing a bit because we did a survey with 1,000 Black entrepreneurs to better understand the experience. And one of the things that I think is interesting that we're seeing is a mindset shift in terms of the way that corporate sees Black women doing business alongside a corporate job, and also how it's being received by employers who are, once you leave, the way that they receive the value of entrepreneurship and making decisions to work with that business again. So for example, we found that 51% of these businesses are actually, receiving entrepreneurs, very well in terms of doing business alongside the corporate job, which I actually found surprising. But it goes back to that mindset of that more accepting of doing remote work. It's a total transformation that's taking place.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit more about what you've seen as it relates to, women walking away from their 9 to 5,
right,
and jumping in. Do you think that some of them are jumping in blindly? What do they need to know for women who may be considering doing that very thing?
Yeah. So what corporate America needs to understand, and it goes back to what some of my fellow panelists are talking about today, is that Black women are multi-hyphenated entrepreneurs leaving for a number of different reasons. So whether it's financial security, whether it's job fulfillment or career growth, we're finding that Black women are motivated to create generational wealth for families. And so it's that additional income, it's security. And for many of us, including myself, I used to run an agency, and I'm again a part of a Transform Her community, which it encompasses many different Black women entrepreneurs and women of color entrepreneurs. What I hear is that the additional side hustle, or we're juggling additional side hustle, we're juggling 9 to 5, and we want to be respected and received when it comes to the corporate honoring the space for Black women to really invest. So in our survey, we found that 33% of Black women feel that full-time jobs as an entrepreneur, they feel like they've been overlooked for career opportunities.
Indeed.
Because they're doing in a job in addition to doing entrepreneurship. So I think there's an opportunity for us to continue what I just pointed to, that a mindset shift in the way we receive entrepreneurs. I think what it illustrates is a resilience, a determination, an ability to manage time well, and that should be an asset to a business rather than something you look at as that taking away from the ability of a Black woman to deliver. So, yes, so we just, especially during the pandemic, as was pointed out, more Black women founders are pursuing entrepreneurship, and the remote working has given more flexibility and control. And I think that's what people want. They want the space to build generational wealth. And also, it doesn't mean that we're not also contributing amazing value to the business.
Right.
April, what do you think are some of the misconceptions about owning your own business? Some people think that, well, you're going to jump in, own your own business, and now the only boss you have to answer to is yourself. You can have mornings off or long weekends. Talk to me about what you found in that space.
Well, you are always going to be answering to someone. If you are a consultant like I am, I have clients, and my responsibility is to communicate with them and to be accessible. So that is definitely a myth that if you are a Black woman in business or any individual in business, that it's just easy. Now, I will say this, is that there is a certain type of naivete that helps to protect you. Because it obviously is not a walk in the park. Obviously, a lot more people would be doing it, would be leaving their 9-to-5 jobs. But I believe that Black women are doing it. If I can encapsulate it in just one word, I would say liberation. Liberation of mind, liberation of body, liberation of your spirit, but also it helps to remove that financial cap. When you're working a 9-to-5 job, you may get COLAs here and there, but I have found that in my experience working on jobs, there is no path for growth. There is no path for financial increase. When you're working for yourself, as long as you're not selling yourself short, as Nicole likes to tell me all the time, you can make 2x, 3x as much and even more, actually. And of course, it's not all about money, but that is how we build generational wealth. And that is extremely important. But I can say for myself, I created a whole outreach strategy for small minority and women-owned businesses for the state that I worked for. And there was absolutely no one said, great job, this is excellent. And they're still using this strategy. There's no credit given. And that kind of sounds like the Me Too movement, which was hijacked by another sector of women. And that happens, I would say, all too often, that we do the work and then it gets hijacked. And there are other people that get the credit and other individuals that we work with that actually get promotions from that. And so that is one of the biggest reasons why you're seeing this large exodus during the pandemic, because now people are working from home and you have the opportunity to do side hustles also while you're working your regular 9-to-5.
But let's drill down a little bit more about that, because how does moving from a 9-to-5 to being an entrepreneur, to owning your own business, if that is the only job that you have, being an entrepreneur, if you've never done it before, what are the things that may surprise you that you weren't expecting from professional life to personal life? What kind of adjustments did you have to make?
You definitely have to make adjustments to how your cash flows, right? So you are used to every 2 weeks or once a month, however your job pays you, and that is what you get used to. So you have to really, when I say really, learn how to save and conserve. And like my friend says, live skinny. You have to learn how to live skinny when you are working in as a business owner. So that can be a surprise. If you are going after state or federal type contracting, you need to be able to float your business for a certain period of time. Now that gets us into the issues with the lack of financing that we're able to receive from potential banks. And so you have to look into alternative financing. Some use credit cards and some use savings. And those are not necessarily recommended, but if that is what you have in order to get started with your business. But I would say the cash flow is probably the biggest surprise that people, Black women in business have to face, because you're no longer getting that, that normal paycheck that you would receive. But I can also tell you that once you learn the rhythm to it, you really can go far.
Ty, and actually to all of the ladies, if you can, even as we've shared your titles, the titles are not hyper specific to the jobs. And so I just want to ask simply, I mean, we're not talking about Ty Heath, pie baking, or Nicole Parker concrete company. So, Ty, what do you do?
I can guess that all of us wear many hats on this call.
Okay.
That's what I'm gathering, and that is true for so many Black women. So my job, the B2B Institute at LinkedIn, yes. I'm Director of Market Engagement. Our B2B Institute at LinkedIn is a think tank, and we look at marketing effectiveness, working with leading researchers and academics. So it's behavioral science, and I try to apply that to everything, including how I think about this topic we're talking about today. So happy to share a little bit more about that. The other hat I wear that you mentioned is I'm co-founder of an event called Transform Her. So this was an entrepreneurial venture within LinkedIn, because I looked around me, and at LinkedIn, we are committed to economic opportunity for the global workforce. And for me, I was like, how do we bring this to women of color? So the event is all about information, access, and resources to advance alongside allies, but very much centered on the conversation for women of color. And then the third piece that I always support, and this is where my passion for this topic comes in, is that I am an entrepreneur, will always be an entrepreneur. I ran a B2B inbound marketing consultancy for 3.5 years, and very much, experienced the, how do you think about your cash flow? How do you survive? How do I pay the people that are depending on me in my life? How do I build? How do I go from 0 to 100? So all of these challenges are challenges that I've experienced, but also learned so many things, and have so much gratitude for the skills, the resilience. I know if anything ever happened, I know I can build something. Right?
Okay. So Nicole, we know that you are the principal and CEO of the Ellison Group, but what is the Ellison Group? What do you do?
The Ellison Group, actually, Ellison is Nicole backwards and forwards. And
how did I miss that? Wait a minute. How did I miss that? Okay, very good.
A dear aunt who passed away actually in 2009, and she would call me Mini Oprah. It's like, you work so hard and you're the next Oprah. But for me, I grew up in the construction industry right out of college, a business major, and fell right into construction. I worked for 2 large firms and 2 small. And after, building contracts for other companies, I said, hey, let me, if this doesn't work out starting my firm, all I have is me to bet on. And if I don't win, the resume will speak for itself. I can go back and get a job. And so I landed in the construction industry. We manage new construction projects from start to finish, beginning to end, open to close, in 4 areas: construction management, design management, technology, and facilities and logistics. So that is my day job. I would say my community service job has always been very important to me, to give back and to show other Black businesses how to gain a seat and get access at the table. And so 2013, we started the Ellison Group Foundation, which is an advocacy framework for teen moms. I had my son in college, and African-American males trying to find their way and get to that next step. So that's job creation, it's mentoring, it's etiquette, it's getting into college. And so that is huge for me. And then third, I actually train and speak on a lot of platforms for American Express and SBA for small business. So I am a small business mentor.
Okay. Okay. I got it now. And Nicole spelled backwards. I don't know how I missed that. Very creative.
Thank you.
April, Kennedy Consulting Group. What do you do?
Well, first, Kennedy is my mother's maiden name. So that's where
Okay.
the name comes from. But we actually work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, and specifically for supplier diversity. And so for several years now, I've had the opportunity to support small minority and women-owned businesses in ensuring that there is equity on solicitations and contracting. And that really, if you will, that is how many of our white-owned counterparts grew their companies, through government contracting, through the GI Bill. And so what I do is I analyze the marketplace to ensure that there are proper solicitation goals that are placed on these particular contracts. I also wear other hats, and I also do voiceover work. And I'm a professional singer as well, too. So, you know, I definitely wear quite a few hats. There is a product I'm going to be bringing to the market sometime soon, within the next few months. So indeed, like Ty said, wear many, many different hats.
Mm. Earlier, you mentioned that Nicole told you never sell yourself short. Nicole, what did you mean by that?
That's right.
I'm going to refer back to that day, being denied my promotion passover, as well as the people below me, when I was carrying 70% of the revenue for this company, and knowing what was coming in, because I had brought, again, 70% in, and knowing that the owners did not care about their people and what they did, but more so care about the profit. For me, it's not about the profit. It's about, as a woman, you know, we embrace challenges. We have focused mindsets. And when we bring that forward, the profit comes. And so for me, I've never cared about the profit. It's how I treat people and how I treat myself.
That's right.
First, and make sure that I gain that access to the table. And if I don't, and it's a no, that stands for next opportunity. That's something that I've said over the last 10 years. No means next opportunity. I will be back.
I have to agree with that. I've had several no's, and those can be your greatest motivators. It can fire you up. It can tell you, you know what, this is not the right opportunity for me. And then there are several times where I've gotten a no for things that I'm more than qualified for, but it doesn't have anything to do with qualifications. It has everything to do with aligning with your purpose. And you might hear—
What does that mean? What does that mean? The alignment of your purpose. I love the holistic phrasing of that, but some people are going to say, what does that mean?
Right. Well, I was not put here on earth to be the host of the Daily Drum. That's not my purpose.
We're going to stay away from that.
Yeah,
I need to keep a job, so don't come in here.
And I've been listening to your show for years, and you have just gotten better and better. That is completely your purpose. My purpose is to advocate for small minority and women-owned businesses. It's clear, and really, to be honest with you, you know when it's clear, because your pathway, it just begins to illuminate. Just like that MJ video, once you make a step, the pathway just starts to really just light up. And if you get to a point or where you submit a proposal for a particular contract where you're like, oh, this is going to be great, it might be a no. Case in point, I was actually going to be responding to a contract that was actually here in the state of Maryland. And there were a lot of hoops that I had to go through. And one of them being, I actually had to drive the solicitation to Baltimore in the middle of the day. That's very risky. I did not make it. I was 5 minutes late. And when I tell you, I sat in my vehicle in Baltimore and I just cried. It was the day where it was just a series of unfortunate events. My neighbor locked her and her dog outside, so she came while I was finishing up some last minute. And when I tell you, we have never been late submitting a proposal, submitting a bid, or responding. We've never been late. I called one of my mentors. Her name is Janice Montague. She talked me down off the ledge. And let me tell you, if you don't have those kind of women, Black women, like I'm very blessed. I have Janice, I have Sharon Jackson, I have Nicole Parker. And Nicole and I, we kind of go way back. And I had the opportunity to interview Nicole some time ago. And so I knew her exit story, and that really inspired me and inspired my own exit story. So really having Black women who have walked this path and to really help you be able to find and align yourself with your purpose, that is truly, truly important and very impactful on your success.
Can I just chime in here on this? Because
Yeah,
you,
sure.
you said networks, and it sparked something for me.
Right.
You know, one of the things, going back to alignment of values and connecting to networks, one of the things I love talking to business owners about, and one exercise I did myself was just thinking about 3 questions to get aligned to the purpose. What are you passionate about?
Right.
What are you committed to?
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you aspire to create? And if you can answer those questions and introduce yourself using the answers to those questions, that becomes something that people remember. And then you start to build a network of like-minded individuals and women and folks that share those values. And that's how other companies that you may work with start to identify you as having that value alignment. So I love this conversation because it helps people get to the core. And then I can't help but mention, when you talk about networks and forging opportunities, LinkedIn, shameless plug here, is a conversation before the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more often than not, before people meet you, they search your name. And more often than not, that number one result is going to be LinkedIn. That's an opportunity for you to share those values, for you to tell the story. What do you stand for? And that way, before people even meet you, they're already seeing who you are.
Okay. Now, I'm going to take a break in a bit, but before we do, I'd like each of you to share with our audience about where you think women can best find some resources as they are either preparing to jump into the entrepreneurial space or some things that may help them along. Is there a website or a book or anything that you would like to share? We can start with Ty.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. LinkedIn is certainly one of the.
I'm going to agree.
Why did I not think of that?
I'm going to agree. LinkedIn
is going to be LinkedIn.
It does.
Proactively adding people once you meet them, expanding your circle, reaching out, using LinkedIn Learning to, the courses there for you to get the soft and hard skills that you need. When I was in the space of entrepreneurship, and even now, I still use a blog aggregator called Feedly to get all the different information to stay out front for my clients. And then I got to give a shout out to Harlem Business Alliance, who helped me become a women's certified business. So they're local places as well.
Okay.
There definitely are. I was going to say there definitely are.
Well,
April, a resource real quick.
Sure. Let me just give, LinkedIn does work. I've won at least 2 opportunities in the past 6 months through LinkedIn. But as far as the resources, I would definitely say whatever state you're in, go through those opportunities. If you can get certified, like in the state of Maryland, it's through the Maryland Department of Transportation. And also your biggest opportunity for growth is in your network. In your network is your net worth.
Okay.
I would absolutely start there, those 2 places.
Okay. Nicole, real quick, you've got about 20 seconds to share with us.
I would say for me, piggybacking on both of what they said, the LinkedIn and in your network, your local state, MDOT has the small business certification, SBA, women's business centers all over the U.S., very important. Your local MBDA, Minority Business Development centers, and your National Minority Supplier Development Council, which you have one in every home state.
Okay. Boss ladies, Black women entrepreneurs charting their own paths will continue in just a few seconds. Thank you for staying with us. Our special edition of the Daily Drum, Boss Ladies, Black Women Entrepreneurs Charting Their Own Paths, continues right now. I'm Harold Fisher. My guests are April Williams, and she is the co-owner of the Kennedy Consulting Group. Also with us, continuing with us, Nicole Parker, principal and CEO of the Ellison Group. And now joining us is Joyce Sheffield. We're going to get Joyce on in just a bit. She is owner of On and Off the Runway. Let me start. Hey, Joyce, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Let me first start with something that we were talking about right before the break. Ty mentioned networking. So here's the difficult, but I think truism, and you can tell me what you think. Networking is so important in any business. But when you're talking about Black women, there are stereotypes about their inability to get along. True or false? What do you think about that?
Absolutely false. I know that that's been the narrative, but we are changing. We are growing in so many facets of just coming together. As we know that this is Women's Month, so we are coming together, and we see now that we're stronger when we can build together and grow together.
What do you think, Nicole?
You know, I always speak on this. I think there can be sometimes potentially be challenges when we don't get along. And our goal is for us to all get along. But I go by the 3 C's. We certainly have to collaborate, right? There's enough business out here, but we go farther together when we collaborate. We have to celebrate one another's, right? Celebrate our milestones. And most importantly, communicating effectively. And if we could just keep those 3 C's in mind, that's what gets us to the next step.
That's right.
So if that is indeed the case, April, then where do you suppose that stereotype comes from?
Well, I mean, it comes from a lot of places where so many stereotypes come from. You know, if you think about, you know, young Black girls in grade school who are, you know, more falsely treated and punished than their other counterparts. And where does that come from? It's because Black girls are more aggressive and we speak differently and we speak harshly. Whereas, you know, our temperament, you know, many of us can be very matter of fact, or, you know, you can speak, you know, your words in a certain way that can really, you know, have people off guard. But I want to say that, you know, what our demeanor is for our male counterparts is looked at as great leadership, is looked at as, you know, this person is doing well. So where does that come from? That comes from a falsehood, right? So I think it's just very unfortunate that it continues to perpetuate in society, that continues to, you know, really place a false halo around, you know, the Black women in our community. So I honestly don't know where it comes from, but I think it really goes way back to, you know, way before Jim Crow and being separated from lights and darks. And it really goes way back in our history, I believe.
You said something that just now that really struck me, and I want all of you to comment on this, but April, since you brought it up, I'll start with you. You spoke about leadership. How does leadership look for Black women in business, entrepreneurs, compared to leadership for men? Is it different at all? April.
Absolutely. It's absolutely different for women, and I think it's unfortunate. And so that's not only in business, but you can see in politics with Judge Ketanji Brown being looked at across the board, and we want to see, you know, let's see her paperwork. Did she graduate? What are her LSATs? That type of thing. You know, someone else, you know, a male counterpart that does not have anywhere near the acumen. They do not get raked over the coals much like we do. And that really does hurt, you know, Black women in business, because when you actually go to sit at the table and you make your voice heard, then, you know, you're looked at as being negative or, you know, she's mean or she's rude, when really you are just speaking just matter of factly.
What do you think leadership looks like for you, Joyce, compared to men? What is your leadership posture? What does that look like?
My leadership posture. Well, as you know, many of you may know, I'm in the retail segment in business, and my leadership posture is one that is, I believe that someone just mentioned, I move in integrity across the board, right? I also have a mentorship program. I have other business owners looking to me to be the example. And I think that's what we're missing sometimes in business. Everyone wants to lead, right? But no one really wants to follow. And I believe that leadership first comes from your servitude. How can you serve one another in business versus just always, yes, and leadership is, you know, as a business owner, you have to lead, but I think you have to give the ability to have the ability to serve just as much in any area of leadership.
That's right.
Nicole, what does your leadership posture look like? How would you describe it?
And all awesome answers. I would say the biggest thing, again, is not sacrificing your integrity, right? While being a leader, you're tried, you know, through the fire, through the cold. So what is it? And for me, you know, going into my next chapter, hitting 50 and, you know, celebrating 15 years in business.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming, and I'm 75. But,
but celebrating 15 years in business, for me, the things that I did before in leadership, you know, from learning from mentors, taking the advice from mentors, and not stressing in the stretch, right? Because people don't see behind the scenes. There's far more work than the glitz and glam of being, you know, a leader or an entrepreneur. You're always working. You're always thinking. You have to have a focused mindset. And through it all, when you're tried, the biggest thing is not sacrificing your integrity. I think that is huge. And while all at the same time, not being afraid to make the waves, right? Because you will be tested and tried. And, you know, I'll go back to what I've continuously said. As African American women, we have to walk 3 times as fast.
Right.
So once again, a really important point has been brought out during this exchange. So let's talk about, Nicole, if you don't mind, the things that people don't see, the highs and the lows. Let's first go low. When you left the other company and started your own business, talk to me about the low point in the next part of your business life.
I don't know why this just came to mind, but this is just such an important point that I talk about. But I had a fortune, and my earpiece is falling out, but you can hear me hopefully.
Yeah, you're fine.
And I transitioning from government to commercial, corporate, Fortune 100s, Fortune 500s, and I couldn't gain a seat at the table. And I can remember submitting 9 bids to a local Maryland Fortune 100.
Wow.
4 years ago, 9 bids, and every bid I lost. And so at that low point, I said, God, I know that I am not a loser. But I need them to tell me what I've done. How do I handle this? And I wrote a letter to the corporate office, to the board of directors. I researched who everyone was. And in that letter, I said, my name is Nicole Parker. I'm the CEO of the Ellison Group. I am in construction and project management. And by the way, I just lost the last 9 bids that I submitted. Could you tell me what I'm doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Because I don't have that answer. It sent a ripple effect, and it gained the attention of this Fortune 100 company. And then the work started coming. And I don't expect anyone to hand me anything. I work for it. But sometimes you have to just not be afraid to make the waves, but keeping that same posture, even when you know people aren't doing you right.
Did you get an answer? Or
I did.
or-
I got an answer, and I got multiple contracts after that.
Come on now.
Okay, so I guess that was the high point too,
Yes,
right?
that was the high point. Yeah, but something like that in a low point, I would say the biggest part of gratification in the low point is showing others not to quit in the low point, because so many of us do.
That's right.
So many of us do, because we think we can't make it, or we're not good enough, right? And for women, oftentimes we think we're not good enough. We are the heaviest judgers of ourselves.
Okay. April, low point, high point.
Well, let me just piggyback on what Nicole said in that regard. I believe that you can have a low point and a high point all in the same day. And I had that just recently, where it was an opportunity that actually I did speak to Nicole about, and I submitted a proposal for a very large amount to a company that is a multi-million-dollar company. And I submitted what I knew I was worth. And I did not hear back for weeks and weeks. And this is after we had great communication. I emailed them, they emailed me within the hour. And then it just kind of went radio silence. And I started to second guess myself. I said, did I pitch too high? And Nicole said, don't sell yourself short. And I said, all right. So I sat in there with it for like maybe one more week. Then I emailed the person who is very high up in the company, and I told them that I was going to be moving forward, that I want to work with people who are just as interested in working with me and my company. I know we do great work. There's no question about that. I got a call. I got 2 calls and a follow-up email, and we are about to sign the contract within the next couple of weeks or so. So it was pleasantly persistent, which is the term that I like to use. You don't have to be nasty. And like the 2 other ladies who said it before, you can still have integrity. I will also say I do spend a lot of time out walking my dog, clearing my head, and getting in the right space to come back, and so that you're not emailing, upset or disappointed, because you're going to have all those feelings throughout one day.
So Joyce, the other guests had an opportunity to explain what their business is about, and I want to make sure you have, that opportunity to do so as well. So what is On and Off the Runway? What do you do?
On and Off the Runway is a retail space. It is a boutique for women of all ages, but it's to the everyday woman. And one of the things that I started the boutique because I wanted to share, to other women that you can still, and I am faith-based, so you can still be faith-based, but you can still rock your clothes. So one of the mottos that we use is don't just wear it, rock it. And some of us and women, myself being the example, I grew up without a father, so I grew up with low self-esteem, and I didn't have a lot of confidence, and I was always looking for someone to approve what I feel like God has already approved in me. But so On and Off the Runway is just that. It's for women to see that we can do and be all that God has intended for us to be. It is also now spinned off into Behind the Runway, which is a community for women with like-minded entrepreneurs who are starting off in the retail space. When I started, I had no help. I would ask questions and dead silence. And so I wanted to offer and share to the upcoming entrepreneur, the upcoming boutique owner, on an online boutique owner, that they can too have a resource in a community that we're building together to encourage each other, to build each other up, to provide support to one another. And so that's what I do.
Now you still have a full-time job, correct?
I do technically still have a full-time job. Yes.
How does that work while running your boutique? Do you believe that women can have it all?
Oh, absolutely. I do. I do technically still, and I don't know if all of my followers know that I still have a boutique I'm a boutique and a full-time job. I am technically working as a payroll manager. One of the things that I've learned in over the years, I choose to stay on my 9 to 5 because it gives me a sense of accountability, right? It keeps me humble. And this is just for me, because I know that we live in a world of social media that says, girl, get off your 9 to 5 and let's do entrepreneurship full time. We have been able to, our last revenue was right over $1 million over the last 2 years. And it was nobody but God. I mean, and of course, I could quit my 9 to 5, but I choose to keep it because I'm able to do it now from home. We figured out around the world now that you can actually work from home and still be productive and still, you know what I mean? So I'm loving the fact that I'm still able to do all of the different things that I love to do. I heard someone say that they're a professional singer. I'm a singer as well. I'm a praise and worship leader. I'm a wife. I'm an aunt, and I'm a daughter. Yes, we absolutely can have it all. It just you have to continue to remind yourself that I can do this every day. Through the fear, I tell myself, just walk through it. Fear is inevitable, but you just have to walk through the fear.
Right.
Nicole and April, but I'll start with Nicole. Nicole, with more women entering the entrepreneurial space, whatever job they are creating for themselves, do you believe that that means that the playing field has become more level, or do you think that one has nothing to do with the other?
I do believe that the playing field is becoming more level, especially since COVID and all that has happened. And so many more women have began to, create their entrepreneurship journey. So in this day and time, I would say, yes, I believe that. But we all, in starting that journey, I think that we all have different boxes to check. For example, myself, when I left, my son was just going to college when I left my job, but I transitioned from that job. As I stated earlier, I, gave my job in one hand, my termination letter, and in another hand, I gave them, an offer to be a consultant that they couldn't pass up because I was carrying 70% of the revenue and I brought the relationships there. And so whatever box you have to check, you have to do what works for you. I think that is so important. And I stayed at that job for the first 4 years of my entrepreneurship beginning journey as a consultant. And then they became my subcontractor. So that goes back to the integrity.
I didn't know that.
And not, being bothered by how someone treats you, because you never know when they may need you or you may need them. And so I say continue taking action and hold your head up high.
April, is a playing field more level now with more women entering the entrepreneurial space?
Absolutely, because what I am experiencing is that I can reach out to one of the mentors in my space or one of my, Black female entrepreneur counterparts at another company and say, hey, here's what I'm looking for, or here's what I'm needing to do. And they literally take the time to speak with me or to connect me with someone. Tawanda Livingston comes to mind. She's a great champion for small business, especially Black women-owned firms. Absolutely. I'm starting to see more of my Black friends, whether it be a 9 to 5 or entrepreneurship, just making gains. And I believe that, looking back on what Nicole was saying, the term that I would like to utilize is the word pivot, right? You always have to be able to pivot. If you can pivot faster than the next firm, then you might be a subcontractor or you might be a prime contractor on a potential opportunity. It just depends on your ability to be able to take what the market has dished out and be able to pull those pieces together and pivot. But yeah, I would say overall, I am seeing this playing field being more leveled. And I believe because we are just not going to continue to accept the way that it's been before. It's been just not great, right? Working twice, 3 times, 4 times as hard, staying late while everyone else, leaves and still not getting those promotions. So yes, I'm seeing some progress.
I only have a few minutes left, and I wanted to give each of you a chance to just share some expanded final thoughts. And I'll start with you, Joyce. Where does your responsibility lie moving forward with this entrepreneurial venture?
My desire and focus is to give back. If I had the opportunity, when I was growing up or deciding to go full-time as an entrepreneur or even think about entrepreneurship, I wish that there were more people that would, or mentors, or to just give back to our community specifically, and to also give opportunity to our community, to be a voice in our community, to say, girl, and get up from there. I know that this has happened, and I know that you've gone through this, and I know that you may haven't gotten a seat at that table, but just as the other ladies has said, we have to learn to build our own tables so that we can sit those who's waiting, and for us to be the example to continue looking on.
Okay, Nicole.
Wow, I just want to echo what she says. That give back is so huge for me. When I started the entrepreneurial journey 15 years ago, a lot of people ask me, why don't you have partners? Why didn't you have partners? And, there wasn't anyone at the time that had the same mindset or the same, focus to develop an entrepreneurial platform. So, while it was me for so long, my desire now and focus is just in giving back to the community, but giving back while educating them that they can do the same thing, because we're no different than them.
That's right.
And there's no rule book or Bible or process or procedures to entrepreneurship, no matter what sector you're in, right? It's all about that communication, collaboration thing. And I think that's huge.
April, I'll let you have the last word.
Yes, I definitely agree with the other 2 speakers in regards to that. I would also say, in regards to giving back to our current community, also honoring those who have come before us. My grandfather was a sharecropper in the Deep South, and my father, he had no formal education. He could not read or write. My father also worked in those same fields. He had a 3rd grade education. He ended up starting a painting and contracting firm. Myself, I have a master's degree, I own a company, I own a home. So each generation has gotten better and better. So absolutely, we must also honor those who have come before us by pouring into the current generation.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. Well said, all of you. And I really appreciate your time. And I want to thank you for sharing your stories and perspectives for tonight's conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And finally tonight, as we all know, there was a time when Black women business owners did not have the recognition men did. But things have changed, and the larger business community has had to recognize they are not just contributors, but breaking through the walls and carving their own successful paths. They are here to stay, writing a new history for those coming behind them to learn from. I'm Harold Fisher. Thank you for watching and listening. Good night.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.